It's time for a Drummer Nation. I'm proud to now welcome Sabian Cymbals as an official sponsor of Drummer Nation. The former Crescent Vanguard series are now widely available as part of the legendary Sabian HH models. HH cymbals are traditionally hand-hammered into shape and sound by Sabian craftsmen. Each cymbal receives between 2,000 and 4,000 hammer blows, resulting in increased musicality, tonal complexity, and unmatched sonic texture favored by drummers in the know for generations. Find out more about the Vanguard series and all other Sabian models at Sabian.com. It's time once again for a Drummer Nation. This is show number 23, April 9th, 2017, playing for the benefit of the band. My guest is Jim White. This is one of the last few I have left of the interviews I did at the Gen Conference in New Orleans in January. Jim White was a student of Ed Softs at University of North Texas. He went out on the road with the Maynard Ferguson Band, moved to Nashville, played with Crystal Gayle, and became a fixture in the Nashville scene. And now he teaches at the University of Northern Colorado. We'll find out what's up with Jim. Have a nice visit. Coming up next on Drummer Nation. Michael Vosbon, your host again on Drummer Nation, still at Gen in New Orleans with my buddy and educator, great drummer Jim White.
Hey, Michael. Thank you.
Great to see you,
Thanks
buddy.
for having me. Great to see you.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I know a little bit of your history. You were a drummer at North Texas State, University of North Texas, 1 o'clock guy.
That's correct. Yeah, I went. You know, it's interesting. It's great to see my teacher Ed Sof here because I went to North Texas. My freshman year was the fall of 1987, which happened to be Ed's first semester there, back teaching. So I was really fortunate that he wanted to come back and start teaching again.
That's great. Well, he's retiring now. This is his last year.
That's what I hear. I know. I'm sad to hear that because he's got a lot of years left to go.
He does. He still plays his ass.
Oh, yeah.
So you left North Texas. You lived in Nashville for a while. Toured with some country acts, I know.
Yeah, exactly. After a stint of doing a show in New York City, I decided that wasn't going to be a place that I could spend the next 40 years, being from Atlanta, Georgia. And so I ended up, some friends of mine, Jeff Coffin, and a great drummer, Chris Brown, that I had known from North Texas, had encouraged me to come down to visit in Nashville. And so I went down there, happened to meet a great bass player, Jim Ferguson, and the next week was able to get on Crystal Gayle's gig. And so she was doing a lot of concerts with orchestras, and so we toured around doing a lot of these pop shows. And I was in her band for quite a few years, and then interfaced to do quite a bit of recording there in Nashville, and then was with Alison Krauss for a few years.
You had also done Maynard's band right out of college too, right?
Yeah. In fact, it was Maynard that sort of recruited me there from North Texas, and right when I finished my degree, I actually left school a little bit early to go meet the band, which was like a drummer's dream, and I feel like I kind of caught in on the tail end of that era because so many of my teachers and heroes like Ed and Jeff Hamilton and John Riley, you know, they all have this experience of kind of finishing or leaving school to go out with the great big band leaders.
Back when the school jazz education became the feeder system for the tail end of the big band era.
Exactly.
And a lot of wonderful drummers came through that.
Exactly.
Erskine was another one.
That's right. Exactly. Peter Erskine, and so I feel like I kind of caught the tail end of that. And spent a year with Maynard's band and got to travel that was my first time going to Europe and Japan and going all over the world. We toured constantly. I got to do a record with them. So I feel like within that time I got to do a lot of the things that were important to
You were dreamed of.
Yeah.
An important question, you were a jazz guy, University of North Texas, Maynard's band, then you're still a great jazz player, but you made this, what did you have to change to be the country guy?
Well, I don't know. I guess I've never really considered myself a country guy because I know guys that's what they do and they sound so great doing that. But I just tried to approach it the same way that I have always learned music, and that's by listening to it. And I had some great mentors. A lot of the older, what was known as the A-team session guys in Nashville, people like Buddy Spiker and Pig Robbins and Bob Moore, Pete Wade. I had an opportunity to do some sessions with those guys, and they would tell me what I was, that I wasn't playing the Ray Price shuffle quite right, and would talk to me about that and tell me records to listen to. And if their music had a history to it of some sort or had been recorded, and I knew I was going to be playing, I would always try to go back and listen to the original recordings and really study it. And I realized that most of that, that drumming has a special sensibility to it that you have to be aware of. And I tried to learn as much as the idiosyncrasies of that music and serve the music as best that I could.
Well, all these wonderful drummers I get to talk to, I often ask that question, like if you played with Bill Evans and you played with Woody Herman, how do you cover those differences? And everybody, the great guys always have pretty much a similar answer, which is you serve the music. You do your homework, you take instruction, and you serve the music. And then you're a drummer, you're a musician, you're an artist, and the style is almost inconsequential.
Yes, recently one thing that's really been inspiring me, I recently did a series of clinics down in Texas, North Texas, a few different universities, and I was thinking, what am I going to take down there, what am I going to talk about? And there's a clip that has really been inspirational to me that I've been listening to a lot lately, and it's of the great Baby Dodds, who, is the kind of the father of modern jazz drumming. And this was done later in his life. It was done in I think, 1947. And there's a little clip called Playing for the Benefit of the Band. It's 13 minutes of just golden wisdom. And he talks about, I kind of broke it down into what I thought were the key elements he was talking about. I realized in this 13-minute clip, the things that he discusses are the exact principles that we should all be, no matter what style of music we're playing in, that we as musicians need to be aware of. He talks about accompaniment, knowing the melody, knowing the form, playing with spirit, being a psychologist, knowing your bandmates, knowing how far you can push one another. And he also talks about aging and the process. It almost brings me to tears every time I hear it because it's so heartfelt, and I think, here's this guy, who is on the Louis Armstrong, recordings. Whoops, excuse me. And all these things, principles that he's discussing, are the same things that we try to
relevant.
Yeah, today.
And that's available, that video?
It is. It was a series of recordings that he did for Bill Russell, and it's on the American Music label.
It's video or audio?
It's a CD. Yeah, it's an audio recording. And there's different tracks where he's talking about different things. He does some playing on there. But this particular clip is called Playing for the Benefit of the Band. So I encourage everybody to check that out.
And I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Well, that's terrific. And he's a New Orleans guy, Baby Dodds.
That's right. We're right.
It's kind of cool that the music is here in New Orleans, which they're bringing in a lot of guys, a lot of the local guys to the
Right.
show, and a lot of guys at the show are going out to hear the local cats
Yes.
and staying up way too late.
Oh, well, I'm gonna, there's so many of my heroes and incredible drummers that are down here.
Drummers alone, this is a drum town, baby.
Oh, well, I know. It's amazing being here in New Orleans, and so many people have come in, for the conference. We were playing our set yesterday with Rufus Reed and Harold Danko, Clay Jenkins, and Don Alico, and off to my gun side, sitting at the side of the stage was John Riley, and then Ed, and then Dana Hall, and Rich Thompson, and then Ray Brinker, and I was like, okay, well, no pressure there,
Don't worry about it. They're not there.
Yeah.
And they would all say, just sit down and play some music.
Oh, it was so
You gotta
great
be you.
to see them all. They're,
It's very supportive, isn't it?
Oh, man.
It's a love fest.
It
You think
is.
when all these drummers get together it would be a little edgy, but it's not. Everybody wants everybody to sound great and appreciates everyone for who they are.
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, as you know, I've had some health problems over the past, couple of years. I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer.
You scared us, brother. Not to mention you, right?
Well,
Scared
yeah,
you.
it's a big shock, and I had a rare form of cancer, which is a type, it's called ampullary cancer. And unfortunately, the treatments for it are the same as involved with pancreatic cancer. So there's some pretty heavy surgery involved, and I had to do a couple rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, and wasn't able to play for almost a year, and I couldn't teach. I teach at the University of Northern Colorado, and I wasn't able to teach for the year. So it was a real struggle, but I tell you, it's all my friends and family, so many musicians, people that of course the people that I know, but people that I don't, that I never even met before, that are real, have become good friends of mine, reached
Back to that
out.
community idea.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Well, it's a good thing you're at the school. They took good care of you, I'm sure, right?
the school has been amazing. I had a great replacement the year that I was gone. Chris Smith, who wrote the book about Mel Lewis, who was one of my former
Love that
students
book.
there.
Plug that book. I love that book.
Yeah, well,
Tell everybody what it was.
It's called The View from the Back of the Band, and Chris started this as a research project, and then it became his dissertation. And so he went and basically did all these interviews with people that knew Mel Lewis, and put a whole timeline together for his career, and
That's great.
just did
I didn't want it to end when I was reading it.
it put a really great document together, and now there's been so many other books that have come out. The book, with Jake Hanna, and the recent book about John Von Olin, and so we have all these great resources that I encourage everybody to check out and read about these folks that were so influential to the music and have been so influential to myself and all these other folks that you've been interviewing.
Well, let's talk about your teaching practice.
Okay.
You teach at one of the prestige universities in the country or in the world. You have some great students coming up. I'm sure they come from lots of different backgrounds. As a teacher, you want to get across your pedagogy, but you can't teach right and wrong or this exercise or that. How do you approach, what's your approach to teaching these different guys to be great musicians?
Well,
You know what I mean? It's not about reading the Chapin book, for example.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I find that the most important thing that I can do as a teacher is to teach the students to teach themselves. And so there's a few different things that I have been doing. The first thing is I've got to teach the student how to listen, I've noticed. Because if I just say, listen to this, the things that I hear are not going to be the same things that they hear. And so I feel like initially, if I can give them some guided listening and start to point out some different things, whether it's articulation, some students, you say, what instrument is the drummer playing time on? And sometimes they can't discern if it's the hi-hat or the ride cymbal initially. So, you know, I found that I can start with some basics, and sometimes I may not even start with you know, some sort of jazz piece or big band piece. You know, I may take something that they are very familiar with and hear how they've acclimated to something that they know, and then we start taking some processes, you know, breaking it down to try to figure out what's really going on in the music, whether it's, you know, analyzing the form, analyzing the timekeeping, studying the great masters, and usually the student will they'll find somebody that they just latch on to. And I remember when I was in college studying with Ed, it was Mel Lewis for me. And all of a sudden I started to get an understanding of how he was supporting the band. And I've had other, you know, for one of my students, it was Frankie Dunlop. You know, it's been different guys. And they sort of catch on to that, and then, you know, their ears start opening up, and they're applying these same concepts when they're listening, maybe transcribing some music, and it starts to carry over in their group playing. And of course, then you start becoming aware of any technical limitations and how the motion is related to the sound and time.
But that's the
and
right
everything.
direction. That's the music informing the technique, not the technique informing the music.
Well, yeah, I think that for me, that's the way that I've tended to learn a lot of music, and I think that is, I've seen some of my students have some success with that. You know, I have a lot of students come in and ask me specifically, you know, like what books do you use, or what books can I look forward to using? I've played
You're
through
right here.
Yeah, I played through this book and I played through that book, and but the you know, the problem is not really having a context for that information, you know, and the idea of this doing this and against this and this and this, and not the whole body working together. So we spend a lot of time playing very slowly and having, you know, getting some deliberate motions that work for the subdivision we're playing. I have a lot of my students play with a lot of old blues recordings. So instead of just practicing with the metronome, if we're playing really slow tempo, I'll have the students play with an old blues recording, maybe Howlin' Wolf or Muddy Waters, you know, a slow 12/8 blues. And then that way, not only are they practicing, but they're having to listen to the other musicians to play along with them. Because maybe the time's going to move a little bit, but they're listening and they start accompanying.
Ed told me the other day that when he was in the 1 o'clock, and they were all hot shots, you know, it was a great band.
Oh.
I think it was Joe Williams came in
Uh-huh.
and said, all right, we're going to do a blues tune.
Mhm.
And they were like, yeah, you know, they wanted to blow on some Coltrane stuff. And it was like 1, 2,
Yep.
3, and the band just fell apart. So much for the hot shots. Let's get down to some heart and soul here.
Yeah, you know, playing
He said
those.
he learned a big lesson that day.
Uh,
Leon Breeden was over there laughing.
Oh, I bet, you know. And Ed, you know, a lot of that stuff has come from Ed, because I remember he was the first person to really confront me very candidly about my weaknesses. And he's so great at that. You know, that's why he is a doctor. His diagnosis is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And he always really challenged me in a way that helped me realize what I need to work on. And of course, playing the you know, the spectrum, and especially those slow tempos, you know, I wasn't comfortable with that. And so
Well, now it's come full circle where you pass that along to your guys.
well,
And gals.
I'm happy to do that. You know, he's been incredible. Another thing that I've started implementing with my students, one of my colleagues, Steve Kowalczyk, had started to do this with some of his guitar students, is I have each one of my students create a private YouTube channel. And so it's like a practice log, except now, you know, cameras are so accessible that by the student watching their practice, they can start to see what kind of issues they're having with their motion. And so then I have them send me an email link midweek during their lesson and then the day of their lesson. And there's supposed to be an improved version each time. And maybe I see the first video during the week and make some comments about it via email. And then they send me an improved version.
It's very hip. Because years ago, we never even heard ourselves. You had to be hired to go in a recording session. And the first time you go, wow, what's all that shit?
It's
right?
a shocker, yeah.
Yeah, and now everybody can record themselves pretty much at will. But to the next step, you sound how you look.
Yep.
Right?
That's right.
If you play like that,
Yeah.
you sound like that.
Yeah.
So now you can incorporate that, and they can post it back and forth and have interaction with their teacher about it, in addition to seeing it themselves, where they actually see it. You know, because we don't really know what we look like when we're playing unless we see it.
That's right.
It's a great idea.
It seems to help speed up that teaching themselves process, and then they have some idea of the things that they might want to change to create different sounds. They start to understand why they're maybe getting a certain sound, why it's staccato instead of legato, or vice versa. And so it's been working very well.
That's great. That's a good idea. Now, like most of the great players who take good teaching gigs, you still maintain a gigging schedule, right?
Yes.
That's very important.
Yeah, well, I had to, there was some time off there where I couldn't play.
Now that you're back on your feet.
But now that things are,
thank God you are.
yes,
So happy about
I'm
that.
very thankful. It's great to start off the year doing this. I'm doing a record next week with a Brazilian composer named Cassio Viana, and I'm looking forward to that. And then I've got some dates coming, a residency with Greg Gisbert's quartet, and some dates with Terrell Stafford and Joey DiFrancesco in March. And so I kind of feel like I'm getting back at it full steam ahead, and I'm just so thankful to be able to play music and
Share your spirit.
yes.
We're so thankful you're back and okay and doing well. It's great to see you again.
Thank you, Michael.
And,
Thank you so much.
Hello to your lovely wife, Kelsey.
Well, I will give her your best. Thank you so
And
much.
you're an
for having
Atlanta
me.
guy, so we see you a couple of times a year when you come through town. That's always great.
That's right. My folks still live there, and it's still home. Still the Georgia Peach.
Well, come to another show anytime you want.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
thank you so
buddy.
much.
My honor.
I take care.
This is your host, Michael Vosbine, and I want to thank our friends at Atlanta Pro Percussion, Danette Classic Drums, Sabian Cymbals, and Classic Drummer Magazine. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.